When working through your handstand session, we'll be using the 5P framework. Now, the 5P framework is where we're looking at prep, practice, play, push, and ponder. Now, for every session, you're going to start off with your prep work. This is basically just making sure that you're good and ready to start working on the handstand no matter your level. This could be wrist warm-up, shoulder warm-up, maybe even some hip warm-up. Now after that, you're going to go into your practice session. Your practice session is where you're focusing on learning or working on a new skill. Doesn't matter your level. And the thing is, we're all at different levels. So as you continue with your handstand practice, what's going to happen is that as you advance, those new skills will be placed within your practice session. Now, whenever you're working on your practice session, remember that you want clean attempts. So this is where you have an opportunity to focus on making everything beautiful and spending the majority of your time practicing that particular skill at a level that's good for you. After that, you can work on play. Now, play is where you're going to take a related skill or maybe even something different that you feel very comfortable with, and you're going to explore that movement. So, good example, in my case, because I can already hold a handstand, what I like to do for my play is get in a handstand and just move around and move my legs and try and off-balance myself to see if I can hold that handstand. That's just one example of play at my level. Remember, it's going to be different for each person. Now after that, we're going to work on push. Now push is where we're conditioning ourselves and strengthening ourselves for our next session. So this is really where the sweat can come in when you're looking at your handstand work. Now an example of this could be let's say that you're working on your freestanding handstand. That's a relatively high level, of course, but let's say that that's your level that you do in your practice portion of the 5P framework. In your push section, you could go back to the wall and focus on holding the handstand for up to a minute with as perfect as a line as you can do. That can be an example of something that you do during your push session. Now remember, of course, this is dependent upon what level you're at. So maybe you're not ready to be upside down on the wall. That could be your practice session if you're at a lower level. So during your push session, what you might do is get out the bands. And you'll use a band and you'll be standing and you'll place your hands above you and work on holding that for a certain period of time. Remember, the push session and every particular area that we're looking at within the 5P is dependent upon your level. And that's the cool thing about the 5P framework. It works for everybody. Now we're going to finish up after you've done your prep, after you've done your practice, after you've done your play, and after you've done your push, you finish up with ponder. And ponder simply means that you're going to take a step back, think about how the session went. Think about the good things that happened. Think about the things that you want to work on for your next session, and then you can prepare yourself for that next session. All right, that's the 5P framework. We got more on that here in the article. Be sure to read through that and find where you're at within each of those areas so that you'll have a successful session each and every time. Let's discuss what I mean by an attempt. Now, when you're working on a handstand, and let's use the freestanding handstand as an example for right now. Then I'll use some other examples later. If I kick up into my freestanding handstand by using the split leg kick up, and I'm able to do a good job of that, and I come out of it and it's clean, that would be an attempt. But let's say that I'm still working on my freestanding handstand. I use my split leg kick up. And I get up there just a little bit, but I come right back down and then immediately just kick right back up and I come right back down and then I just immediately kick right up. And it's like an Energizer bunny just going up and down. To me, that's not an attempt. The reason why is we want to think about performing a movement at a level that's good for us that we feel comfortable with, and we feel that we did that well. To me, that would be an attempt. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, I'm not at the point where I can actually do that. Hey, I get that, okay? That was just an example of what an attempt could be. Depending on your level, it could be where you just kick up and you get maybe a second of float time and come back down. Great, that's an attempt. Step away, take a short break, prepare yourself mentally, then place your hands on the ground again and set yourself up for the next attempt. Now, for some of us, we're not at that level just yet, and that's perfectly fine. So maybe walking up the wall, holding that for a couple seconds, making sure that we're breathing by reciting the ABCs, then walking down the wall, that's an attempt. We step away, we take a break, we make sure that we're prepared mentally, then we go and we do one more attempt. Remember, an attempt is going to be dependent upon where you are in your handstand journey. So everyone's going to be different. But the main thing to think about in an attempt is perform it cleanly and comfortably, walk away, take a break, then set yourself up for the next attempt. Once you've completed a good attempt, it's time to take a little bit of a break. Now, during this rest period, instead of going and checking your phone and seeing what's going on Facebook, what I suggest is that you ponder a bit about the previous attempt and think about what you would like for the next attempt. Now, this could happen within 5, 10, 30 seconds. Your break period, the amount of time that you're taking this rest, is always going to be dependent upon how fresh you are during that session. So, if you're working at quite a high level for yourself, you might need a little bit of longer of the break. And that's why I can't tell you exactly how long you should be resting. The main thing though for me is after an attempt, I'll step back and I'll focus on my breathing. Is or has my breathing returned to normal? If it has, then I know that I'm ready for my next attempt. I don't want to be huffing and puffing and trying to do another attempt. So once again, after your attempt, step away. Take note of your breath. Think about what you just did. Think about what you want to do for the next attempt. And when your breathing has returned to normal, place your hands on the ground, set yourself up for success, and then perform another attempt. Practicing the handstand can be extremely frustrating. Now, you might have a good day. Things are going great. Next day, start your handstand practice. Things aren't happening. You get frustrated. Where's my handstand? Why can't I do this today? You pull your hair out. Let me give you a bit of advice. Don't get frustrated. The way to do that, let go of expectations. This is a tough thing to do, but really, over the years, me working on various handstand levels, including getting the one-arm handstand, I found that the one thing that allowed me to not only continue to make progress, but to also help keep me enjoying the process was to let go of expectations. If you go into a session thinking that you've got to nail something, or why can't I do this, and you get frustrated and upset, it's not going to help you with that next attempt. So, perform an attempt of the handstand at whatever level you're at. After that attempt, focus on your breathing. Enjoy what just happened, but don't think that just because what you just did was good, that the next attempt is going to be even better. If you can go into it with a clear and open mind each time, just focus on one thing that you would like to get out of that, whether it be this time around, I want to focus on the finger, or this time I want to focus on pushing a little bit more with scapular elevation, or this time I want to focus on maybe being able to breathe better. have that goal rather than thinking that you have to nail something, then you'll always be learning and you'll always be getting better as well. You'll continue to enjoy the journey. Once again, handstands, I know how frustrating these can be. And I've seen a lot of people get upset at themselves for not being able to do it. It's perfectly fine. Handstand work is like this. It's not like this. Trust in the process, let go of expectations, and enjoy the process. There's a lot to think about when you're working on the handstand. There's a lot of information, what we're sharing with you right now, obviously. But in order for you to enjoy the process as well as make progress every single session, I suggest only focusing on one thing for one attempt. For example, let's say that you're just starting off with your handstand. Rather than thinking that you have to get your hands in this position and then you have to breathe a certain way and you have to push away from the ground and you have to make sure your elbow pits are facing forward and you have to make sure you're squeezing your body and blah, blah, blah. No. Pick one thing that day that you'd really like to get and you'd really like to have a better understanding of that day. I don't want to say mastery, and the reason why is you're always going to be working on achieving a better line or working, to point your toes a little bit better. But just focus on that one thing and try and get in a better understanding of it means that you're learning, and you can build on top of that. So this is especially important when you're upside down. Once you go upside down, you're probably going to forget a lot of stuff. So by only having that one thing to focus on, it's going to simplify things. It's going to help you to enjoy and also be more aware of what's going on in your handstand with that one point. This isn't just for when you're starting the handstand. This is for as you get better and better, working towards more advanced versions of the handstand. One thing, one attempt, that's it. It can be really tempting if you're having a pretty good handstand session to just keep pushing yourself until you literally can't do anything. I know it is the way that I've done in the past many, many years ago, but something that I really encourage not just my students but myself to do is to know when to call it a day and walk away. Now, with the ego talking, and again, if you're having a great session, this can be really tough. But by continuing to practice a handstand when your form has decreased is actually not helping you. And so that's why I think it's always good to finish on a good attempt. Now, remember, an attempt is where you have control over what you're doing. You feel very comfortable with it. It can be difficult to tell where your last attempt should be, but as you practice more, you'll feel kind of at that 80-85% mark where if I do a couple more, my form is going to start to decrease. And if you start to get a better feel for that, then you can back off of whatever you're doing there. And let's say that you're working on a freestanding handstand and your line is still pretty good, you're feeling pretty solid. You do another attempt and it's okay, but you're feeling like, oh, you know what, it's really starting to decrease, or it could decrease if I do a couple more repetitions. So instead, maybe you go to the wall. You continue to practice, but you finish up with a very solid attempt, just performed on a little lower level. You end on a high note. This is good, not only physically, but also mentally. You'll walk out of your session feeling great, knowing that what you did that day is helping you for the next session. But let's say that you finish up with a couple crappy attempts you might not feel good about, and that might be hanging over you as you go into the rest of your day and lead into your next session. So I really suggest always finishing on a high note and making sure that you end with a solid attempt. Another common question I receive is, should I be working more on getting my line first, or should I be working to hold the handstand for a longer period of time at whatever line I have? Now, my reply is focus on being able to hold that handstand for a longer period of time. Now, the reason for this is you're always going to be working on your line. That's just how it is. It doesn't matter if you're a hand balancing master. You're still going to be chasing that line. But by focusing first on just being able to hold that handstand for longer periods of time, no matter what your line is, it's going to allow you the strength, the stamina, and the endurance to be able to work on the line. And I hope that makes sense. Again, we're always going to be working on achieving a better line. But in the very beginning, having the strength and being able to hold that handstand no matter the line for longer periods of time is going to give us the time upside down to be able to work on the line.